for Fitz and Taylor, what percent chance do you believe in Fitzpatrick, and what percent chance do you believe in Taylor Heinicke?
I would probably give like Fitzpatrick in that 75% range, only because he's clearly coming in as a starter. Now, as Rivera said, there's going to be a competition. I still want to see how that unfolds as far as how do they, it's one thing to call it a competition. Let's see how it unfolds. How are they rotating guys? How often? Is it an even thing, or is it more like it's Fitzpatrick's job to lose? I think if Fitzpatrick plays well and at least shows the way they hope, that he's going to start. Now that's to start the season, Jamal. That's to start the season. Whether or not he keeps the job for how long, he's got to play well. I mean, you saw with Dwayne Haskins last year, 4 games, and some of that is reading the locker room too. So I would say probably in that range. And part of the other reason I'm saying that too is when I had Ron on my podcast last week, and in that time, and he's done this throughout the spring, where you ask him about Ryan Fitzpatrick's strengths, and it goes back to a lot of the veteran knowledge, right, and the savviness and the ability, as he said, to help make others better. He emphasizes that point with just like he did with Alex Smith, but Fitzpatrick's at a better level as a passer. So I think, little things like he brought up a point about De'Ami Brown running a route in practice, and he ran it right, but Fitzpatrick went up to him and said, what you did was right, but we need it better. And he explained to him on this particular route how to drift away from this guy, and he's going to lead you into this opening with this throw because it's going to take him into more yards, et cetera. And the next time he ran the route, he ran it the right way. So those are the things that he'll bring up that Rivera brings up when he talks about Fitzpatrick and the veteran aspect. Now, you got to go out and play well, but I'm assuming he's going to play well enough. In the spring, he had some hiccups. You're learning guys, you're learning a new offense. Was it just that? If he has a lot of hiccups in the summer, then that percentage goes down. With Heinicke, the big thing to me that I want to know is, okay, what's changed for this kid in the 2 years since you cut him in Carolina? Because in August of 2019, they cut him. And, part of that, we heard a lot about the added weight this offseason, right? The 15 pounds, but it's really only a few pounds heavier than when he was in Carolina or when he came out of college. So it helps him now, but that was because he was sitting in a classroom. He gained 15 pounds from them, but not necessarily from when he came in the NFL. But what he did bring up with him was that he felt like he was playing less cautious and kind of maybe with a little bit more resolve than he had when he was in Carolina, just kind of one of those, F it, let's just go. And guys do respond to that. And guys did respond. And we saw Chase Young, you saw Terry McLaurin going up to him after that game as they go in the tunnel, basically getting in his ear, telling him how much he appreciated him. Guys responded to him. So while I say 75%, part of that assumption is that I think Fitzpatrick will play well enough that, I think if you're Heinicke, I think you may want to throw a knockout punch, but he's got Rivera's eye, and that's a key. And I think they know how guys respond to him. But the veteran aspect of Fitzpatrick would lead me to believe that that's why I give him a much higher percentage chance, especially to start the season. And then where it goes, who knows?
So, John, I definitely think that veteran element is a big thing, but the downside on Fitzpatrick is he's a gunslinger who gives the ball away a lot. And, just talking to players that were in the mini camps, there were a lot of turnovers on his behalf. I know you were there, but just talking to players privately in conversation, I'm like, yeah, we got a lot of chances at the ball. So that's kind of alarming because you bring up Dwayne Haskins. That was one of the main issues that regime had with him was the fact that his turnovers and he gave the ball back over like a good field position, things of that nature. And it's like no matter how good your defense is, if you're throwing the ball all over the place, it doesn't really matter.
Well,
you might have to be the 85 Bears or 2001 Ravens to make it make sense.
And that's why I agree with you and all that, because there, and as you know, AJ, like sometimes in practice, there are things like he definitely, that's why I said there were hiccups then, and that the hiccups were the turnovers. And sometimes, like, there were a couple of times, well, from our perspective, what you don't know is always, what is he working on that play? What are they working on? Is that a play that's a, bread and butter play and he can't execute it? Did he just misread it? Did he force it? The troubling ones to me were there was one day where there were a few red zone picks. And the problem that I have with those is, one, that I saw him throw those, whether it's Miami or Tampa or wherever, that was a problem area. And also because they were really, really forced. It wasn't like, how like sometimes you're working on something, well, maybe the receiver didn't finish the route, or maybe you anticipated this and it didn't happen. These were forced picks, and there were two of them in like 3 or 4 plays where the guy, like, you're throwing it through 3 guys to get to this guy. Those are the ones that I had a problem with, because that's what I saw on film or on tape in his games in previous years too. So that's why I say, I think the veteran aspect gets him to the season. From there, he's got to do better than that, because I agree, like, that was noticeable. Like Heinicke threw a few picks to one guy's working against a really good defense, and the other guy was working against backup. So that's why I say, like, we don't know how will Heinicke do if you're going against starters, right? We don't know against this defense. So that's why I wonder if it's a true back and forth competition, it'll be a lot more interesting. Because you're right, though. I do agree that I think he's got to improve there. And was that a function of new offense? I don't know. And I think that's why this summer that's what'll be interesting to watch.
And the scary part is they actually hold on, let me just say something real quick. The scary part is they're hoping that he's going to improve, but the film doesn't lie. That's who he is. So
it has been
like, this guy is almost 40 years old. That's just who he is, and it's like, if you've made the decision to bring him in, I guess you got to kind of damn near live with it or make another play at quarterback.
Well, and like, the defense isn't going to be fond of turnovers. One reason why they were 6-3 with Alex Smith a few years ago at that one before his injury, because they were putting the defense in good positions. And this is a really good defense, and they're going to be facing a lot of good quarterbacks this year. So you don't want to give those guys better field position. He has cut down on those in the last couple of years, but that's why I say the red zone area is where it was more noticeable to me.
Okay.
What you got, Dre?
Yeah, and John, just keep the topic on the quarterbacks. I wanted to ask, because obviously we've been doing a lot of talking about Taylor and Ryan. So is Taylor firmly above Kyle Allen right now in the coaching staff size?
It certainly seems that way, because when Rivera will talk about the competition, it's Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor, and Kyle Allen was still this spring, even though he was out there, was still only about 90% recovered from that ankle injury that he suffered. Was it last October? I think it was, or early November. But last season, and so that took away some parts of his ability to maybe extend plays the way the others could, and especially the way Taylor could. So that was, but what we know about Kyle Allen is, one, the coaches like him enough to keep bringing him back. They stuck with him a couple years ago in Carolina, rather than, bringing Cam Newton back onto the field when he was dealing with his injuries, and maybe Cam was too banged up. But I think because they liked the way Kyle Allen was playing, they put Cam on IR. And then last year, the first guy they turned to after Dwayne Haskins was benched was Kyle Allen. So I think the hard part in the summertime is to have a legit 3-man competition. We've seen that before. You don't get enough reps with starters to really have that. So, I think that's why they're going this way, but I'm not going to count Kyle Allen out, because they've shown in the past, at some point, whether it's summer or November, at some point, if there's an issue, they're not afraid to turn to him.